So we're going to talk about some really cool stories that Lance has found in some wood.
Right. I'm interested in what stories these are.
Somebody tell us, get us going.
So everything that comes into our shop, we have to wand it with a metal detector. Because our machines, for whatever reason, do not like nails.
Yeah, it's funny, but
some ways
don't really care for those.
No, but our saw sharpening place loves us. Trust me, they love us. So anyway, so we're sitting here wanding everything, and we're all these boards, and beep, beep, beep. And
there's no nail holes anywhere. There's no sign of the ability for somebody to have driven something into this. And so then we start digging into the wood because it's like, okay, maybe something grew in the tree. And here's shrapnel. And then I look back to the date of the barn, the build date of the barn, and it's built in like 1872. Well, that's shortly after the end of the Civil War. And odds are that lead, because it's lead pieces, is a bullet, shrapnel, something along the lines, because the tree was growing during the Civil War. The reason why the barn was built in 1872 or whatever it was is the original barn got burnt down or got destroyed during the war. So after the war is over, you know, it takes a little while to rebuild the barn. And up comes the new barn, cut from the local trees. Well, the local trees are the ones that are growing near the old original barn. So she's telling me that next time I find this stuff, we're gonna go get it tested. And see how old it actually is and how accurate. Not my opinion on that. That's absolutely what it is. I mean, heck, we used lead in bullets all the way up. I mean, I shotguns with lead in them, you know. So I mean, what was it? Mid 80s when we were converting from lead shot over to steel shot. So I mean, but the fact is that barn was built in the 1870s, early 1870s. How did this lead get in there? You know, I mean, yeah, it could have been a farmer that was shooting at a dove or a pigeon. I mean, but it's still going to date around that time. And then there's a possibility that could even be a lot older than silver.
Sure.
Right, absolutely. Muzzleloader. Native Americans. I mean, you could go on and on. This is what we love so much about this. Lance actually, I'm just going to shut it off. So Lance actually does have a history of logging in his family. He also has a history of candy. He also has a history of historian. His grandfather was a very well-known historian in the United States, and all of this just kind of ties in together. You know, here we are reclaiming this old wood that has a history to it. Lance's background has been, you know, history his whole life. I mean, can you imagine growing up with a historian?
All the stories.
Yeah. So we always say this just all kind of fits in with what we've done, or what we're going for, and you know, that's part of the beauty. It's not just the character; it is the history behind it. And here's the sad thing: is, you know, people ask, well, aren't the barns going to run out? Yeah, they will run out someday. They will. But you know what? We're going to preserve what we can. We're going to do our part and work hard and keep working hard and get this wood into somebody's house so they can enjoy it for another 100 years.
Well, I grew up in rural Minnesota. You know, actually by the South Dakota, North Dakota border area. So I know a lot of barns that I've seen in my day got pushed into a pit and burned. You know, so what you guys are doing, reclaiming, you know, this barnwood is special. It's part of history, like you say it, and it has a unique look to it. It's not perfect, and that's what makes it beautiful. You know.
Right.
It's kind of like us human beings. We're not perfect by any means,
Right.
but the more imperfect we are, the more beautiful we are, right?
Right.
So
Right.
that's how I feel about Barnwood, and I'm guessing that's how you guys feel about it. too.
Absolutely. Yeah.
So you guys started this business 6 years ago?
It's a little over 6 years ago. Yeah.
Now, what are the changes you've seen in those 6 years from beginning those beginning times to where you're at right now?
It's been a process.
The Barnwood had a craze back in the 70s. It's the rustic theme and idea has never gone away. It's been around forever. I mean, mountain living is all about rustic. Lake living is all about rustic. But when we started, I had to advertise all over the whole country just to get enough business to stay alive and keep trying to grow the business. Today, it's like we don't have to at all, but we can keep up with it, so we still are trying to, But just the kind of craze that's happened lately in the last few years. We don't get out and go shopping very often, but we were just over at Mall of America, and it was like every store had something that was either it or replicated it.
Sure.
And I don't mean literally every store, but I mean it was more than I've ever seen.
Right.
Right.
And maybe we notice it because we're in the business.
Yeah.
And that could be too, but there were quite a few. I mean, in one store they even had laughing boards, which was probably reclaimed from an old house, the old thin laughing boards that are in old houses. That was one of them.
Mm-hmm.
There was definitely some manufactured Barnwood look-alike product. And of course,
Flooring. There's a lot of the stores that have the flooring and stuff.
Yeah, and they don't have to, and some of them weren't even finished. You don't have to put a finish on Barnwood.
Right.
And, and that's important to let everybody know too. Of course, one of the reasons why people do finish is to protect. If you're going to use a Barnwood as a table, you would want to use a foodborne finish. And that's probably something else that we should talk about too, what we found out throughout the years. Just trying different finishes. We try not to stain anything because we want the beauty of the wood to actually be saved.
Yep.
But we've been dabbling around in some different kind of oil finishes. This is an actual oil finish here.
Okay.
So this is a barn board, came right off the siding of a barn. Planed it down to 3/4 of an inch, and at this point is where we could put like a shiplap edge on it or a tongue and groove edge. But we put some oil on it, and it just kind of makes those grains just pop out just a little bit more. And with that old growth, trees grew so much slower back then. It's our nation's first clearing. I mean, really.
Right.
And what we tend to try to do is go towards rivers because that's where the trees were most populated.
You got all your hardwoods close to the water bodies, different height elevations, latitude, longitude lines, all factors on where different wood species grows and doesn't grow. One of the big reasons why the vast majority of our barns up here are pine, and then you get some maple and you get some birch, you get a little bit of oak, but you can go down south and the entire barn is oak or a mix of hardwoods, and I mean even the siding is. I mean we get siding that comes in and we cut the end, and here it is, a nice reddish purple, which is black walnut, and they used it for the siding on the barn, and so it's different to go to different places in the country, and that's the biggest reason why we do is to generate quantities in all sorts of different types of wood species, and that barnwood isn't just barnwood. You can do so much more with it.
So is there any misconceptions about barnwood, like if put it and install it in your house and it's gonna smell like cattle, or it's gonna smell like a certain smell. Is that just not really true? Because it's probably been baking for a while.
There is a little truth to that, but I'll put it this way. We cut all of our stuff. We process all of our stuff. And if that thing stinks, it goes straight into the trash.
That's good. That's good to know, because I know there's going to be some people that are going to ask that question. You know,
Right.
What I've come to find is that maybe there was an area in the barn that they used for as a hog pen.
Yep.
The odors that come from certain animals will just embed into the wood. But then knowing that, that's one of the reasons why I try and find out the history of the farm, is to know whether I'm gonna, is this wood when I get it home, is it just gonna reek as soon as I make a cut into the lumber and activate all the smells and the minerals that are into that wood. I went to a barn one time, and it was a huge barn. It was a beautiful barn, and it was a bank barn, meaning on one side you drove into one level, and on the other side you could drive in to the basement level.
Okay.
Or in other words, and in the basement of this barn, they had, I think they must have had a good 200-300 hogs in the barn, and you could just smell the odors. And I'm like, I can't take the barn.
Right.
Why not? I know what this wood's going to smell like. I hate telling you that, but I know what it's going to smell like. I can't do that to my customers.
So you're pre-vetting the barns that you're reclaiming, making sure that you're getting good quality wood, and it's not going to stink, or it's not going to have something that's not desirable.
Right.
When you're
Bugs and insects is another question. I'll put it this way. Once again, we process our wood, just like you see on this one, we've processed out here. But when we start processing it, we get to see what's actually inside the wood, or at least a good portion of the wood when we go that 1/4 inch deep. So if it was a true 1x, we're bringing it to 3/4. By the time you take off that 1/4 inch, you're seeing into the wood. You're going to be able to tell, has it been overly buggy or whatnot? Well, through the years, I can just look at the board and tell you whether it's going to be or not.
Sure.
Some of it, we can clean off, and all of a sudden it comes clean again, and we know we're back to safe. If it's necessary, we can kiln dry it. But